Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Everton Daily Live. Sorry we're a bit late. We were recording a couple of other things, but we're here now. We're ready to go. I'm ready to talk more about Everton's takeover, of course, which seems to be hotting up, Ned. It's more interest grows as the day goes by. Hopefully, I said this the other day on X, hopefully Farhad Moshiri makes the right choice this time and we get an owner that, or a consortium or a group that can take us forward, can deliver on what they say they can, i.e. actually purchase the football club and move us forward.
I think 777 just went on for so long and it became so inevitable that it was going to fall through, and still this news wasn't coming out when that was happening. I think that had a lot of Evertonians really worried that if they went away with, considering they're the ones keeping the lights on at the time as well, I think everyone was worried that if they went away we would slip into some sort of, administrative state. But it's not been the case. It seems like there is loads of potential buyers, and maybe they were just waiting for 777 to fall through. And Moshiri was like, right, this is probably, I'm at my lowest. I'm going to just listen to some offers that I might not necessarily listen to a year ago.
That worries me if it was the case. Well, I'd be worried on two fronts there. One, that people are just sniffing around the carcass then. Because I'd said all along, someone, in my opinion, should have made their interest known.
Yeah, I agree.
Even through whatever channels. But the other side to that, which makes me worry, is Moshiri just deciding, we better listen to other offers. Because if there's some genuinely good offers here, he should have been listening to these from the get-go, or certainly along the line. However, we are where we are. We can't go back over old ground. It's done. What is done is done. And Farhad Moshiri had the money off 777 for all of those months, keeping the lights on, as you've said, completing the stadium. We're moving towards finalisation now of the stadium. And there seems to be a lot of people in for Everton Football Club. On Friday, we obviously had Andy Bell and George Downing, backed by Michael Dell, or the Dell family office. Now, I know there's conflicting reports about this. People got very excited on Friday night and, thought that Everton would have access to 103 billion. It may still be the case. Who knows? There's different reports coming out about what that would mean. And obviously a lot of these things progress as time goes on. You get in through the door and then you are backed by a group like that, and then you sell the next bit of the venture to a group like that, and it develops over time. So FSG done very successfully at Liverpool. So that I wouldn't rule out Michael Dell not putting money into Everton Football Club. Far from it. I know that he is very interested in backing George Downing and Andy Bell with that. We've had, obviously, MSP is still in the fight. Apparently they're interested in taking the football club over now when they weren't. That's interesting.
Strange one.
The story is about ACAP, who were obviously just trying to protect the money that 777 put into Everton, because obviously that's come from somewhere and needs repaying. So they were involved. John Texter, who apparently hasn't gone away despite reports the other day saying he has, he's apparently looking into putting his Crystal Palace shares into a kind of like a holding state where he wouldn't control them anymore. He'd still own the shares, but the shares would be available to sell and be sold at a different date. It's apparently the same way that two owners can have two football clubs playing in European competition if they're not controlling one of the others. That will be the case. Now, he has to get special dispensation of the Premier League to do that, apparently. But if he can convince the Premier League that he wants to buy Everton, which apparently he does, and he just wants to sell Crystal Palace, he's not controlling anything that Crystal Palace is in. So he's still in the fight. I will come on to you in a minute. I'm just going through where we are right now. Then over the weekend, we saw on Saturday was Roma's owner, Dan Friedkin, put a certainly make inquiries about buying Everton Football Club. Gazzetta dello Sport, they say he wants to buy Everton Football Club. He is obviously multi-group owner, very similar to Texter. And therefore, there's serious interest from him. And then on Sunday, Vatch Manukian, who is an Armenian London-based businessman, is an Evertonian as well, which was very interesting. He apparently made an offer to Farhad Moshiri, a serious offer apparently, a £400 million all-equity bid. Vatch Manukian has made the offer to current owner Farhad Moshiri. He spoke to him over the weekend. He'd been in contact with him for a few weeks apparently. His proposal would not mean leveraging extra debt on Everton Football Club, which wouldn't put the future at risk. He's apparently got other people involved, and he's a local businessman, London businessman rather, and lawyer. He's an Evertonian. He's a partner at tech firm IMS Digital Ventures. He's put together a group that includes some American investors, Saudi royal investors, and the Australian Maya family, who are all putting money in to be part of it. So obviously he's a very interesting one as well. His consortium of millennials, they bring business, tech and digital knowledge to Everton Football Club. To be their first venture into football, they regard Everton as a sleeping giant.
I think Moshiri will be thinking what's best for the club and him financially. In terms of what the fans want. I think we'll be thinking what's best for the club moving forward, but I think a lot of our fans are also on the same page that we just want to be better off financially, considering we are in quite a lot of debt. There's a few of them that which I just can't see happening, or I just think it would be a strange process. I think the Texter one, he's got 45% or something of Palace.
45.
And he's got he's not any influence whatsoever at Crystal Palace. So him selling his, because he's going to have to sell off all of his shares at Palace. Who's going to want to buy all of his shares and be in the same boat as him, having 45% and having no influence? I just can't see that happening. And with it being so, a lack of interest in his shares at Palace, I just think that would be a really, really long process. So I don't really think time is in John Textor's favour. So I can't see that one happening. Okay. The MSP one, it's obviously they don't already own shares. I can imagine their debt will be turned into shares. But then if they wanted the majority of shares, which are Moshiri's, wouldn't they get them? Why weren't they interested in them when the shares were probably lower than even what they are now? We're closer to building a new stadium, and when the stadium's finished, the shares are going to be, a lot more than what they're worth now. So why weren't they interested in the full amount of shares when they were giving us 150
million? Well, don't forget they were basically the favourable ones. We all thought it's over a year ago now, but they looked like they'd won the day, didn't they? And all the stories around that time where they were going to come in with this lower investment and then turn it into buy more and more and own a football club.
The Southampton game they came to watch as a group, something like that.
What, 18 months ago now, and it never quite materialised, which I found very, very strange at the time. But apparently they want to take control now, probably to protect the money that they had in there. So it is a strange one, isn't it? I mean, you personally, are you bothered that it be an Evertonian who owns it? So obviously we've got George Downing and Andy Bell, who are both Evertonians, both season ticket holders. We've also got Vatch Manukian, who is an Evertonian. The others clearly aren't Evertonians in any of the other consortiums. Or would you, if Everton were contacted today by Tim Cahill and Qataris with a big fund, would you lean towards them? What I mean is does it bother you? Because when I've said to people, oh, what about having an Evertonian in charge? Bill Kenwright's flipped straight back to me. Because when Bill Kenwright come in, he came in with great promises, and we all thought we've got an Evertonian, it's fine. Does it bother you for that, or would you see it separate?
It's intentions, and then there's bad ownership and there's good ownership, and I think you don't have to be an Evertonian to be a good owner, and you can still be an Evertonian and be a bad owner. Bill Kenwright had good intentions, and at times was a good owner. He held on too long, and
far too long.
And you could say otherwise, but an Evertonian came in now. Like I say, it's about intentions for me. If they know exactly what they want to do and they want to grow a business and grow a really good football team and make them a competitive team so they can compete at the top, as long as you know how to do that, I don't think it matters. If you've got the attention and aspirations to get there, then that's fine. Obviously, an Evertonians will already have that good intention and aspirations because they're Evertonians. They want to see the team that they own at the top. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they know exactly what they're doing. And I wouldn't choose someone as an owner just because they're Evertonian over someone else who might have a better, business strategy.
See, I'm of the belief that, I know John Blaine will challenge this, but I'm of the belief that whoever takes over will make Everton better. Simply because I think we've done things a certain way for far too long. We've operated out of a different playbook than everybody else for far too long. And that was Bill Kenwright's doing, don't get me wrong. He put a culture in place and everybody just carried it on. This is where I think Farhad Moshiri went wrong by not changing that culture. I think there's people at the football club who could thrive in a new culture. There's people at the football club that'll need replacing. I think they'll accept that as well. I think everyone knows there's going to be those kind of changes at the football club. Right across the board. From people who just work behind the scenes to management levels to people at Finch Farm. Recruitment could be changing. Or there could be loads of changes because new people... I've seen reports that they saying the new ownership could sack Sean Dyche and bring their own manager in. And you go, that's harsh, but this is what happens with new owners. And I'm not saying he will, because new owners might come in and go, he's done a great job, he deserves another go. And he did do a good job, and he does deserve a bit longer. Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because you deserve longer, you're going to get it. Look at Erik ten Hag at Manchester United. He's won more trophies in the last 2 years than Jurgen Klopp. And yet, he looks like he's getting binned because Man United have got new ownership in place. And therefore, would we take a bloody Carabao Cup and an FA Cup, wouldn't we, in 2 years? I think so. And Ten Hag could be hailed as some sort of legend, whereas at United they're going, he's won trophies, but we want to replace him. So new owners do it regardless of emotion. Everton could get new owners and leave Sean Dyche sound, give him some money, get on with it. What I mean is nobody's position will be safe. No. But Everton Football Club will be operating, in my opinion, to a different playbook now, and that will be any of the consortium. Now, some will be better than others. You're right, the likes of Andy Bell he'll want Everton to be right at the very top. He should do. If he's an Evertonian, if there's 3 Evertonians bidding for Everton, and 2 are in one consortium, 1 in the other, all of them better be coming in with the intention to make Everton Premier League champions and European Cup winners. They might never get there, but that has to be their aspiration because you have to aim that high. It's not going to be done like that. And listen, we might never get there, but what's the point going, I hope to come in and take Everton over and make them 10th. And that's all we need, because that is horrific for me as far as I'm concerned. Everton is still a huge football club. They're the 5th most successful English club. So why wouldn't you try to restore them? John Textor has spoke more about that, who owns bleeding Crystal Palace, about returning Everton to their not rightful place, but returning Everton to glory days again. So I absolutely guarantee that the likes of George Downing and Andy Bell and maybe Vatch Manukian will all be thinking, I'm going to put Everton back where they belong, or at least have a right good go at it.
I think they'll all have good. I don't think anyone will come in with bad intentions now, because it's not like anyone come in and just
but some might be just pure business, which I get.
Yeah, but the thing with that is, it's not like someone can come in and just strip our assets because we're in so much debt. I think someone wants to actually come in and see the potential if they can get us sorted. Farhad Moshiri came in with good intentions, built his new stadium. He's just got it wrong in a football sense along the way. I just think anyone who comes in, if they've got experience and knowledge of how to run a football club, or even any business big enough, anywhere near as big as Everton, you'd have a board at least. At the moment, we've got a board which suggests that we're standing in the middle of the road. If we carry on with this board, you know, we're going to get squished somewhere along the way. So that needs sorting, and that's just basics. You look with Man United, they brought in, well, they've got an owner now who run football clubs. He's had success in France, and he's brought Dan Ashworth into the club, who you look at basic modern football, and having a director of football is one of the best ways to get a bit of sustainability. We've had that in the past, but we've not let a director of football, you know, reach their potential.
United have had directors of football, they just haven't.
Yeah, well, they've done it wrong, haven't they? They've had conflicts on the board, conflictions on the board. And you could say that we've had the same under Farmer Shearing. It's why now we currently have a temporary board, which, like I say, isn't probably fit for purpose for a long period of time, and that needs sorting. And I imagine anyone who does come in, well, I can guarantee it, will bring their own board with them and get that sorted. And for me, there'll be a few with bags of money, of course, but you know, Mashiri's had money and had the backing off, you know, Usmanov, which obviously didn't see its full potential because of what happened in Ukraine. But for me, it's more of who good intentions and knowledge and experience of the business. Someone who's maybe managing football before, which is like the AS Roma owner. I think there could be a bit of potential there, and I'm just excited to see what would happen in terms of the first things that an owner would do when they come to the football club, how they get on fans on board, how they make any really sudden impacts, whether they do change a manager, whether they bring in a communications director to help get fans on board. Who knows? But I do think that it wouldn't take much to win us over at the moment, because we have been for a few bad years as Everton fans.
Yeah, listen, they've got to put the right people in place. Farhad Moshiri didn't do it, and that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Robert Jones on the Super Chat says, looks like Moshiri has a buyer's log after all. Maybe Ned knew more than we did, and he just put that out there.
No, that's why I put the Tyson.
That's why you put it, the buyer's log.
Makes sense.
You were absolutely correct.
He's closed one book with 777, and now he's opened another with other potential owners. And you were like, oh no, dialogue. Dialogue. How boring.
Fair play to you. Fair play, Ned.
It's buyer's log.
Fair play, it's a buyer's log.
I'm gonna like
why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? It's very, very interesting times ahead, isn't it? And it's, you know, you just wonder where it'll end up. I hope it doesn't drag on and on and on. It may well do. But
I think the good thing about it, like I said, was 777 was dragging on. We kept saying, where are all these other people? Where's the other interest? And maybe they were just, you know, vultures circling a carcass.
Of course they were.
But now we know that there's multiple interest. It's not so... We felt like we were under pressure or a bit of stress if 777 fell through, which it did. And thankfully, the club assured us that we'll be okay. Moshiri's assured us that we'll be okay. And there's other interest. So I think people are a lot more relaxed now. And I've even seen a lot of people more excited than stressed at the moment with like the Dell news and stuff.
Well, because we've got to. I think there's a great opportunity for whoever takes over now. John Blaine always says it, and he's absolutely right. Effective communication. Everton haven't had effective communication. Doesn't mean the people who are trying to communicate it aren't good. You know, it's what they're being allowed to communicate and what they're being told. And speaking to people within football and who are around the football club, not necessarily people from the football club, people who are around football and therefore footballs, you hear a lot when, you know, the good people there not getting told anything. You know, how can you be a PR person at Everton or a media person who's there to speak to the media when you're not allowed to speak to the media? Or not necessarily like not saying don't you dare speak to the media, but not telling you anything. How can you communicate if you're not getting effective communication from above? And that's what I'm saying. Whoever, the Fanafasi board have put a statement out, haven't they? Encouraging new owners to communicate. Let them know. Keep the fans in the loop all of this will drive a majority of Evertonians back together. Most of us are anyway. But just because of what you were saying then, you're absolutely right. There seems to be a lot more excitement now, where weeks ago people were genuinely, I know the football thing was one, wasn't it? People were so stressed. The reason why I've said numerous times, last season was the worst ever season for me, ever, supporting Everton Football Club. Now, okay, we were safe a few games to go, and people might look and go, that was worse than Palace when we were 2-0 or whatever. But for the whole football season last year, we were under stress.
Panic mode.
We were under stress at every juncture. We couldn't win a home game at the start or score a goal. We knew that the bloody charges were coming. We didn't know what that would play out like. And we obviously had the ownership up in the air, and we're trying to build a new stadium. And when you threw all that together and lashed it in the washing machine, no wonder your freaking washing was coming out dirty than when it went in. It was terrible. And we were under pressure the whole season. Points deductions, blah, administrating, people who should know better, peddling lies about administration. And they realise because it's the middle of June and Everton aren't in administration. Right? So all of this, they've got a few weeks, and then it's, when people are seeing people, I'd say there's more chance they'll go into administration in the next couple of weeks in things like February and March. That's a disgrace for me about our football club. And all of that on top of not winning games for 4 months and everything else just made it worse. Now, I think people have flicked the switch almost and gone, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Most people didn't want 777. And that's out the way now. So people are going, right, okay, what is there? And there is and because there's interest and other interest out there, people can now see the upside. Remember John Blaine saying, and probably just before he went away, which was bloody weeks ago now, saying, we're on the boat and the boat's a bit rocky, but the beach is here. You know what I mean? The horizon with sun is just there. Can we get there without falling in? Well, you know what? We're very close to that beach now, aren't we? We're very close to getting onto firmer land, and we just need this to be concluded quickly for us. It doesn't necessarily mean just pick anyone so it's concluded quickly, but what I mean is for everybody, it would be really good if there was if Farhad Moshiri said, listen, I've agreed to deal with this. We're all relatively happy with that deal, and we can start looking to the future.
If you're going to use that analogy, it was almost like a few weeks ago, and I'd say maybe on the deadline day for 777, a lot of fans didn't realise there was a beach right there. I think that's a fair play to the club for releasing a statement after the deadline. And he has said before in the past, to be fair, that Moshiri will put his own money in. Whether it's the type of communication or just the lack of it, maybe we should have constant updates. I mean, we haven't had a video statement since when Moshiri said that we'll sign a striker, which didn't happen in the end. So I understand that people might have lost the trust with the manager, with the owner a little bit. But with all the media stories we've been getting in the past week or so, I think we are on the same page in terms of, I think a lot of the fans want Sean Dyche to stay because they can see improvements on the pitch. Obviously you can see, well, it's facts that we've improved in the league table. If you take away the point deductions with 12th, 13th, that's a big improvement. And I think a lot of people trust Sean Dyche and Thelwell that they know exactly what we need this summer.
Do you think a lot trust them?
I think so.
Not on my timeline, you don't. I think
the fan base will be. If you ask any fan now, do you think we'll go down next season? Or do you think we're in trouble? I don't think they'd say. They think we will be.
That's what I would say is wait till the season kicks off.
At the moment, I feel
Branthwaite will probably go.
Do you think?
Onana will go. Everton need money right now. Doesn't matter about the takeover. Everton need money, and if Everton got an offer of 80 million for Branthwaite, do you honestly think Everton will turn it down?
I think they got Onana out the door before July. I don't think they were necessarily. I think they'll accept offers for players if the clubs meet their valuations.
I hope he doesn't go.
No, I also don't think the club are in a desperate state. enough to sell Branthwaite undervalued like they were with Richarlison.
It's not undervalued though, is it?
You think if somebody offered 50, 60 million for Branthwaite, they'd let him go?
No, but I think they'd say if you offer
But that money would sort us out, wouldn't it?
If you offer 70 million, he's yours.
Yeah. Well, clubs always evaluate a lot more than they actually want, don't they? If they say 90 million, then they probably would let him go for 70, 75.
Listen, Jared Branthwaite, I want him to be here on day one, I really do. I think another year at Everton would be beneficial for both. But if Everton got that kind of money, they could do lots with it, because it's basically, I know there's a sell-on fee for Carlisle, but it's not huge. They could right a lot of wrongs with the Branthwaite money.
Yeah.
And give the manager cash. Onana goes before. The problem you've got with selling Onana is you'd want him, if you're going to sell him, you'd want to sell him after the Euros, and you'd hope that he'd had a great Euros. So therefore, I don't know if Everton factually have to sell before June the 30th. There's conflicting reports of what the PSR looks like. I don't know.
It shouldn't be in the middle of the transfer window.
No, it shouldn't, but that's the way it is. We can't change that now. And obviously, there was a little bit of a blow over the weekend that Bayern Munich have reached agreement with Fulham for Palina, who plays where Onana plays. You know, and that company wanted Onana apparently, but they wanted Palina. So that's one potential suitor gone for him. And therefore, if it's going to be another Premier League club, then they'll probably, I imagine, wait until after the Euros. But I don't know. I mean, it depends who it is who wants him. But that's the trick. That's where Everton are right now. That's the frustration.
What are people saying here in the comments about breaking news? Is it this one? Consortium with Saudi Royal makes £400 million bid.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about. It's Vatch Manukian who's on the thumbnail. We've been speaking about that. That was actually the bid was made over the weekend for the people who, for the people who are putting breaking news in now. There you go. Senside, the 15th richest man in the world, wants to buy Everton. Dell, even. He's the 10th, isn't he? But it's not him, is it?
So, if this is the Saudi royals' money, does that not matter? That because Saudi Arabia's public?
It's not going to be his money, is it? He'll just be.
Yeah, but who is it? So whose money was used to buy Newcastle? Not the same funds.
The Saudi PIF, wasn't it?
Saudi public investment
funds. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
I've no idea, mate, because I've no idea who the Saudi royal family member who wants to put into Everton would be, with Manukian. Quite clearly, it couldn't be the same because they can't own two clubs.
Yeah, well, there'd be conflicts of interest, wouldn't it?
But we'd see, wouldn't we? We'd have to see. But that one is all equity with no debt and Manukian, what we said right at the very start, yeah. But who knows? This is what we're saying.
Yeah, just going back to the Branthwaite thing, I think for me, in the past few years, we've obviously had a bad track record of using money for one player to improve in other areas, which is probably how to improve your squad efficiently. You sell one player, you get 2 or 3 better in other areas. But I just feel like Sean Dyche and Kevin Thelwell probably will be a bit more sensible with the money given to them. I think they probably, and I say that they signed Beto last year, and I think Beto has been a poor signing, in all honesty. But then again, you can still get more out of Beto if you improve in creative areas like the wing and the midfield. But I do hope with the mistakes we've made in the past with signings, I do think that they'd get them better if they got a bit of money for a player.
Why though?
Spend most of it.
What makes you think that they would do better than what they've done previously?
I just think I look at I look at Lampard working with Thelwell and signing players like Mopey, and lesser willing to take risks on other players. I think Sean Dyche would be more open to players. Sean Dyche took like players like Maxwell Cornet and Burnley, which Frank Lampard would probably be more like, no, I want Neil Mopey because he's playing in the Premier League.
I think that's nonsense.
Why?
Lampard's a home now.
No, not Thelwell signing though.
Like, so
We know Mopey was a Lampard signing.
What we're doing is, well, we don't. We know it was a Thelwell signing. Nothing to do with
I thought Thelwell wanted the lad from France.
No.
Really?
I've seen nothing from our recruitment team last few years that's made me go, they know what they're doing. As in, I would trust them. Because I look and just think, you still haven't bought pace. You haven't signed pace in a league that guarantees you need pace. Now, it doesn't say they might have took loads of players with pace and the club hasn't gone through with them. But I'm talking about what's just been put on the counter. But I'm not having this thing where what you've just said is essentially the argument people use when Everton win a game. It's down to Sean Dyche, and when we lose, it's the players. It's the same Sam Allardyce thing that you've just gone, Kevin Thelwell with Lampard, that was Lampard's fault, but that was Kevin Thelwell's. He got that one right.
No, I think Thelwell still got one wrong.
Kevin Thelwell brought in
he bought Dan Juma, which is
Ruben Vinagre.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Yeah. Neil Maupay.
He brought in Thingy as well, Dan Juma, which I thought was a poor signing.
So that's what I'm saying to you.
I think like last summer we spent nothing apart from Dan Juma's loan, and I think we improved the squad.
Okay. But this year
I think
who brought Beto in?
Thelwell. But I think there can still be.
Do you think Sean Dyche agreed with that?
Yeah, I don't think if Sean Dyche said no to a player. So you just said
about 5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago that Beto was a poor signing.
I still think,
and yet Dyche and Thelwell agreed it. But now you're saying.
But then I also immediately said that we can get more out of Beto with improving other areas.
I don't mind Beto. I think his touch is shocking.
I think his touch is the only. I think his touch is a nightmare.
I think what I'm saying is that there's got to be more evidence for me that they're on top of everything in the recruitment side of it, and I've not seen that. That makes me go, yeah, and they know exactly what they're doing. There's some good and some bad. You probably get that with every club.
I think the recruitment last summer was okay, but if you look at actually how much money they spent and who they brought in, I think it was good. I think they got what they needed to improve in the league without spending any money. I think they got some wrong, and I think they'll learn from that. Thelwell signing Dan Juma, which I imagine had nothing to do with the manager. I think they'll learn from that.
Okay. Fair play. They need some money to be able to spend. It's the big thing, isn't it? That's the big thing. Trying to do deals with no money. It's obviously massively difficult. There's a huge problem there, isn't it? You're trying to, Everton recruitment team could, and Kevin Thelwell could lay out a list of targets on the table, but if most of those clubs go, we actually want some money, then you can throw a lot of them in the bin, can't you?
Steve, I actually think that last season when Burley went down, Charlie Taylor's one of their best players, and we went to sign Tarkowski, who went down in that team. Tarkowski's been brilliant. I like Charlie Taylor.
I would not.
I wouldn't have him now. A couple of years older, been out of the team. But even when they went down, he was playing centre half for Burnley. The Burnley fans loved him. Company liked him.
I think everybody, it's easy to sit here and go, Kevin Thelwell's not good enough, Sean Dyche is not good enough, blah-de-blah's not good enough. The job they're all having to work with is very difficult because money. That's the reality. Do you know what I mean? Very, very difficult. What I'm saying is I want to see a different style of recruitment. Onana was the right style, but we still ended up paying 30 million for him.
You might see that more of that with money. You can't go and get the players you want if you got
what I'm saying.
Money,
so,
which is why we sign players like Young and Harrison,
so
which I think we're sensible.
We're all under scrutiny, aren't we? Everybody at the football club's under scrutiny, so we've got to hope that they can... I just want to see the things of the likes of pace being brought in, which is what Everton have been crying out for, and yet no one seems to have been able to correct it. And yet there's fast players everywhere, and yet we just seem to always look in the wrong areas. So I don't know what that is, but Let's see.
We get linked to the right type of players the past couple of years. You look at Kudus a couple of years ago, Maxwell Cornet last year. Now imagine they just couldn't structure deals with him.
Maxwell Cornet. Why do you keep going back to him? Do you like him?
Yeah, he's a good player. And he's got pace. And he done really well for Deitch.
Kudus, yeah, but that was Lampard once a Kudus.
Yeah, we should have got him.
And that wasn't that. To be fair to Kevin, that wasn't Kevin Delwell's fault. He had the deal all agreed, and United bought Anthony off Ajax, and then he couldn't let the both of them go. If Anthony would have stayed where he was, Kudus would have been an Everton player. No, he'd probably would have been sold now.
And it's mad that because they got 80 million for Anthony, they could have literally gone and got another player.
Yeah, but it was left late on, wasn't it? But anyway, we're not. It's not really about that, is it? What we're trying to say is, if we get new owners, we want to be able to. We want to be able to sort of give that manager, give the recruitment team that little bit of cash so that it makes Kevin Thelwell's job a bit easier. Instead of having to go, Kev, we need this, this and this, and we haven't got any money for you, mate, sorry. How's he really supposed to do it? It's difficult, isn't it, to be able to go and do his job. Yeah, I can question some of his signings and go, why did you choose a lad that can't run, who's 5'7" against a 6'4" centre forward that didn't train for 3 days because he wanted to join us? Like, why? Like, what was the thinking behind that? Or why did you go for this play when this play was available? Why did you pay 30 million for this striker who was always going to be a bit part when you could have paid 3.5 million for this fella who's the same physical attributes and is a few years younger? Do you know what I mean? Or they could have gone and got... I was banging on about Victor Boniface. Well, who knows what kind of deal you could have done for him?
We saw how many strikers we were linked with in the summer, and it just feels like the only deal you could structure was where they didn't have to.
Well, maybe, and that might be the reason why.
Probably Beto was the best of the options.
Well, there you go. So I'm not going to go too in on them, but I want to see a bit more evidence that it isn't just, oh, look around, Charlie Taylor's all right a bit. No. There's left-backs in Europe. There's left-backs throughout the world who are better than Charlie Taylor, who are faster than Charlie Taylor, who can come in for low money or no money and pay them next. A lot of these clubs will take a big payment next summer, and you get them this summer. Everton are already looking at doing a couple of them because they think quite clearly next summer they're going to be in an even better position to pay. So we'll have to wait and see. But the ownership thing, that's key. But this is what I'm saying about Jared Brantwaite. If a big money offer does come in, Everton may well turn around and go, we can right a few wrongs here if we let him go. I hope it isn't the case. I really do. I hope there's other people like Onana who clearly wants to move on now, which is fine. No problem with that.
But back to the original point, I just don't think they're in a desperate place where they have to undersell him to avoid slipping into administration or anything. And I think that's where people are a bit more calmer at the moment. I don't think we have to sell or we're going to slip into administration. I think people are quite relaxed about the situation.
People are relaxed.
I think they know we'll sell and are quite content with it.
Well, I don't know whether content would be the right word, but I think people's frustration will be tempered by a thought that things will get better because there is a certain amount of people who want to buy Everton Football Club right now, where for so long we didn't know who wanted to buy us or we didn't know whether we'd even have a football club because the owner was talking to 777 for so long or whatever, or it disappeared. He didn't even keep us informed of what was going on, did he? And that was the biggest thing for everyone. And again, I'll keep going back to John Blaine's effective communication. There's just nowhere, is there? There's nowhere. On Premier, Mike says howdy Gary as well, Juan as well. Steve Guy says, hi lads, regarding the sale of the club, I know beggars can't be choosers, but I'd much prefer Everton supporters being successful, provided they didn't let their love of the club cloud their judgment, unlike the last chairman. You can't say they will or they won't, can you? You wouldn't know. I just want the best deal for Everton Football Club, to be honest. And if the Blues, then that's tremendous. If they're not, we move on. Everton Viking says all these secret Evertonian millionaires coming out of the blue now. To be fair, it seems like there's quite a bit of interest in some very good sounding potential owners. Personally, I believe it'll be Downing and Bell. Apparently they have a few other investors, not Dell, that are backing them up. Dave Witch says Tammy Abraham rumours reading Roma journalist, they reported a week ago, Roma reluctant to rely on him, he wants to come back to England. Could we see a situation where Beto goes on loan to Roma and we take Tammy Abraham on loan?
I suppose that, yeah, maybe if the deal is done so it suits us, I think that's a player where Dominic Calvert-Lewin still hasn't signed his contract. If he ends up going, then Tammy Abraham's probably more or less of a risk to start up front than Beto, I think. Tammy Abraham's got, history of scoring in the Premier League, and he's done really well for Roma, apart from having a really bad injury. I'd take Tammy Abraham if the deal's right.
I don't know how that'd work though, because Everton know a payment on Beto, don't they? This summer of 8 million quid or whatever it is, loaning him to get it. Like, what would we be paying 8 million quid for a striker we don't have in the club?
You could ask for 8 million loan fee.
Yeah, but what would they say, yeah, well, what?
You want 8 million for Tammy Abraham.
So
yeah, straight. Yeah,
I think if Everton aren't gonna keep Beto, they'd rather sell him.
Yeah,
I don't know how realistic that is. Maybe if Dom goes, they'll keep Beto and sign loan another striker. I don't know, mate. Brian says, is it a case of Mashiri wanting an unrealistic price before, and now he's willing to listen to more reasonable offers? I don't know, because a lot of the stuff around Mashiri was he wasn't getting anything. He just wanted someone to take the club. He was keeping some equity, but not a lot, as in shares. So I don't know, Brian. Steve P says, Baz, you think these Broja links make sense? 30 million for him would be mad, in my opinion. What's he done to warrant a fee that high? I know he's still quite young and obviously talented. He's had a bad injury and done nothing since. I'm seeing people say he'd be an upgrade on Dom, which is mad to me. Zero evidence to suggest he'd be anywhere near as good as Dom. And he's nothing like him. His hold-up play's terrible. He wants to pick up the ball and run on it, the channels. I wanted him 3 years ago, be different now. I wouldn't pay £30 million for him, not a chance. I like Armando Broja. I think he's a good player. I think if you're playing him off a wide area, but he would have to be a wide forward. He's not through the middle, unless you play a certain way. He's never got the goals. He had a great season at Southampton a few years ago. The injury has obviously stunted his development. I'd take him on loan, absolutely, but I wouldn't pay £30 million for him. No,
I think, considering we need to upgrade in so many areas on the pitch, you spend that much money on one player, and that might be the only money you've got. You want them to take some of the pressure off your back, give you that peace of mind that they're going to score 10, 15, 20 goals, and they're really going to elevate your team. But if you don't know that they're going to do that, if they're not really going to make a big impact on the team, then you're just spending all your money on one player who might not even make a difference when you could spend it in other areas. And you get 3 players who do make a little bit of a difference. Those 3 players make a little bit of difference, all come together and make one big difference. So I wouldn't be spending that much on a player unless it's a sure thing that they're going to really make us much better.
The only reason how I could see Everton paying 30 million or 25 million for Armando Broja is if Chelsea said, there's no money to pay down on him this season. You can take him, but you start paying next summer. Very similar to the Beto deal.
I wouldn't have 2 strikers.
No, but I'm saying that to me is the only way. Yeah. Everton can't do a deal at 25 and 30 million pound right now. I know the down payments on them would be whatever. It could be 6 million a year over 5 years, whatever. I can't see Everton paying anywhere near that for him. So that the only way I could see that kind of deal being done would be if there was nothing to pay right now, and then they sort of backloaded it over the next 4 years or whatever. What would it be? Like 7.5 million a year over the next 4 years.
It would just be mad, wouldn't it? When you need other players on other positions. So not desperately, but we do need to. We've got one winger basically, Dwight McNeil. I think when you need other...
Harrison will come back on loan.
Yeah, but I think when you need other players in other areas so bad, imagine owing 60 million over 6 years for 2 strikers.
Depends what you
who aren't guaranteed strikers.
That's the problem.
Broja and Beto aren't guaranteed centre forward.
But they should. I mean, realistically, they should be though. They should be the goals, and that is who you should. You should always be owing your money on lads who win your games of football.
You spend that much money on a striker.
We haven't got strikers in who score goals. Harry was hoping for the Dell takeover so we could have the Dell end stand. What about if AJ Bell takes it over? Patrick Moore says an astute businessman is what's required. Don't care who they support. Correct. Roy said, who's this Ned? Was he abducted by aliens over the weekend? He was starting to talk sense. The most informative comments I've ever heard from Ned. Then he put, a few minutes later, I take it back. So you started off quite well and then you ruined it with your Charlie Taylor and all that kind of stuff.
Just my opinions. I think the manager and the director of football, with no money, improved our squad efficiently. They had no money, and you could see how much better last year we were. So,
in the 4 months when we didn't win a game. Mark says, can new owners help with a transfer budget while the Premier League process goes through? What they can do is create cash. We can't come in and go, there's 200 million and you can go and spend it. But they can create cash. Everton issue last summer wasn't they couldn't spend money. Everton's issue last summer was they didn't have money to spend, as in there was no cash that they could put down. It's all a balancing act, isn't it? Of course. But we will have to, if we want to give the manager a budget through PSR, we have to create money, and that will sadly be through player sales for now, until we improve sponsorships and restructuring the debt and all of that. Also, if we sell Jared, I hope, which I hope we don't, how much of the fee could go on transfers. It depends what the PSR numbers are, really, doesn't it? But even if Everton cleared 40 million, say they sold them for 75, I think Carlisle would get about, what would they?
They just said it's a substantial
it's
amount.
15%, is it? So if it was 50, they'd get 5 and then another 5, wouldn't they? So it'd be like 7.5 million. Say they got 10 million, for argument's sake, just to make the numbers easy. They come out with 10 million. Then Everton have cleared 60 and Everton put 30 to PSR. But I don't think it'd be that high. Then Everton potentially could then go and spend £30 million, which again, potentially could be £5 million down payments on players. It's just that you have to find that next summer and the summer after. But Everton's budget gets better from next summer. That's how it is. You've just got to balance your books that way. That's the way it's done.
By the way, to Carlisle, that's a lot of money.
That's huge.
That's
huge amounts of money.
For them.
Dave says, hey up lads, any truth in this £400 million consortium? But it's the one from the weekend. Vatch Manukian. Went in over the weekend, yeah. Roy says a conspiracy theory for you lads. Southgate going to United and Ratcliffe told them not to take Branthwaite the Euros to keep his price down. Seen that a few times over the weekend. Yeah, I think that is pure conspiracy. I think he's just Branthwaite's being unlucky because Southgate's made a terrible call from a football perspective.
That's why it makes it's so hard to support England for me, because I just don't like the manager or the players, and I don't like this manager because he just leaves good players out. So,
why don't you like the players?
Just players of clubs that I don't like.
Okay.
I like a couple of players, but I like Bellingham.
All right, mate. No issue. No issue.
I don't like Lewis Dunk because he's not Branthwaite.
Well, that's it. You're just using biased. I just don't, with all due respect to Dunk, I think he's a good Premier League defender, but I don't think he shouldn't have gone over Branthwaite, in my opinion. But there you go. Kev says, listening to Ned talk about players we should be signing or have signing just shows how low the expectations of younger fans have fallen. Us older fans expect a hell of a lot more from the club and players we grew up, the 80s teams. The younger fans have never seen any success and have been brainwashed into thinking the current recruitment is the best we can get. The new owners, whoever they are, have to change the mentality of the club. Yeah,
I think we've all been conditioned in that way, to be honest though, Kevin. I think you are right. I think you look, I was saying this to Cam not so long ago. It's mad how I like Mikalenko. He's a good player.
He's
First team
good.
left back. We had Leighton Baines not long ago, and then Luca Dean.
I know, but
And then we look back. Oh, what I'd do for Kevin Morales back. Kevin Morales couldn't even lick Andre Konchelsky's boot, and Konchelsky was, still a Premier League era Everton winger. So I just think that's what's been happening over the years, and our expectations have become so low that we are in this position where, yeah, we'll take an Ashley Young on a year because we need someone like that. It's just where we are as a club, and hopefully once we're a bit more stable, we can start getting better and improving in positions. But at the moment, we just got to make really sensible signings, haven't we? People like Harrison, who we know played in the Premier League and we know can do a job, and that's where we are. People who can do a job. But obviously, I want to get back to the, point where we've got some of the best players in the positions in the league, like a Lukaku or a Leighton Baines, if not better, because that's where we should be.
John Blaine says Southgate's taking Tom Heaton to the Euros as a training goalkeeper. Manchester United, Tom Heaton.
Interesting.
Yeah. It is. It's all.
Imagine if he does get announced as the United manager after the Euros, that would be crazy. Because, like I said, I think I said this the other day, they did it now. Imagine what that would do for England fans and England camp and England players going into the Euros. I think that would be catastrophic. If they announce it after the Euros, and it would look like Man United have waited, far too long to sack the manager, which I think they have already. I think they're going to sack him. They should have done.
I know, but if they know they're getting behind the scenes, they can do all the work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I think it would look like they wouldn't know what they're doing. But then if they do know what they're doing and they do know they want Southgate, why haven't they sacked Ten Hag now?
Because they probably don't. Well, they might not want to destabilise England before the Euros. I still think the Zerbi's in with a shot. I know Thomas Tuchel pulled away yesterday, but we'll talk more about that on More Than a Game. Derek says, should Everton take a 6-point deduction to hold on to Jarrad Brantwaite for another season? Surely he's worth more than 6 points, and we'd surely get more next season. And who knows, new owners might be willing to pay him enough so he stay. I don't think it's the money with Brantwaite. It'll be going and playing at a high level. Would hate to sell him a little cheaper just to comply with PSR. I get it. I just don't think any club will say, oh, you know what, we'll take the points deduction. I just don't think they will. Villa are talking about selling their players, Newcastle selling their players, Chelsea selling their players, Everton, Forest. There's Wolves, there's loads, isn't there, who are saying we're having to sell. Not one of them has gone, we'll just take the hit. Come at us again if you want, we don't care. I don't know. I hope Brantwaite stays, I really do. And therefore that would mean Everton needs some money in for a few other players then. Because no matter what happens, Everton need 8 players this summer. Realistically. 8, 9 even. And with the current budget, ain't getting that. And we were thin last year. We were thin as anything.
Selling deadwood is really, really difficult. Getting money for players like Michael Keane can be really, really tough. Even just getting them off the books, really, really difficult.
We need money in for them. Getting them off the books won't matter. We need money in for them. Someone's got to come and pay us some money to take back in. We can't let players walk out the door. Andre Gomez just walked out for nothing.
The biggest task for me is, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin doesn't sign this contract, then get him out and make sure you get, they got 20 million for Iwobi with a year left. Make sure you get at least something like that for Calvert-Lewin, and then make sure you spend that money wisely, because you need a striker who you can rely on. Because there's no other goals in our football team at the moment, is there? No one else has scored any goals. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's our joint top scorer with 7 goals. I don't know if Decore's going to play as much as he did this season. He's getting older now, and you can't keep relying on Decore. He hasn't scored since, well, apart from the goal against. Well, he went months without scoring.
Yeah, when he scored against Sheffield United, it was his last goal since he scored in December, wasn't it?
Joint top scorers on 7 goals.
Newcastle.
You let one of them go, and the other one doesn't score as much as if you really got enough goals in your team to stay in the Premier League, or at least get where you were last season. I don't think so. So that's a really big task for the club this summer, is sorting out that striker situation. Whether if Beto's going to be your number one, then get some goal-scoring wingers and creative midfielder who are going to create more goals. Because that's another thing, we don't score enough goals out wide.
No, I mean, there's lots of twists and turns. Obviously, we need to know what's happening with Calvert-Lewin. He could go out the door. So, yeah, it's a tough one. But the takeover is obviously the news that's dominating it right now, and that'd give these other players an indication of where the football club's going. And who knows? Yeah, maybe you could then convince Jarrod Branthwaite or Dominic Calvert-Lewin that Everton are on the up. Who knows? But we need it sorted soon, and hopefully we'll find out more as we go through the week. But it's good that there's so many people seemingly interested in Everton Football Club. So let's see what happens. Right, we'll be live on More Than a Game in 5 minutes. Don't have to go anywhere. So if you want more footy chat, stay exactly where you are. We'll see you in a minute.